That change is possible. It don't matter where you come from or what diversity have happened in your life. If you want to change starts with inside you, not where you are. Because I find with a lot of prisoners that we work with, they will change, or they will think about change on release, or I'll do it next Tuesday. It's like giving up smoking. I won't give up smoking today. I'll give up next Tuesday. So what we're trying to ignite in these guys is a little bit of inspiration and courage and knowledge to say, I mean, it don't matter where you are, who you are, what you are. If you want to change, you can start change right here, right now. And the change will start inside you, in your attitude, your thinking, and eventually your behavior. And that's where Richard came in and done a little video of himself, I mean, for us, because that was really inspirational for the guys to relate to somebody who's actually was in jail and telling his story. So that was quite a good start for the young adults we went to work with on a different unit. And Richard, being the kind man he was, he sent in a couple of pictures, and it just blew the boys away how somebody from another world, shall we say, across the pond is so kind and giving. And you mean gave something of himself. You mean 5 brothers, and we was all in trouble. My mother was an alcoholic, and if you have a look at my genealogy, all mine were red. You mean there was no way that I could be a successful person working in a prison, not with my background and not with what it looked like on paper. In reality, I made the changes and became what I wanted to become. But if you have a look on my genealogy score, you could have a look and think, well, you mean this guy hasn't got a chance, blah, blah, blah. You mean you can change, because anybody can change. And you mean I was born in, you mean Manchester, I got 5 brothers, I come down to Swansea, my mother was an alcoholic, I ended up in detention centres, approved schools from the age of 12. You mean the only emotion I had was anger. I left school at 10 years of age, I started drinking at 11 years of age. It just went on from there, you know. I went to jail again. I come out, I started using drugs because everybody around me was using drugs, because they're the type of people I knew, you know, so we wouldn't be having a pint with somebody in university. We'd be having a pint with somebody on a dole and stealing for a living. I became embroiled in, drug taking. I was living in the communities using drugs. And I went back to jail, I come out of jail, I went back to jail, I come out of jail. Nothing changed. It was only when I realised I was sitting in a cell, I'm either going to die in jail or die of a drug overdose, because I can't live in the community. All the will in the world about me wanting to make changes, I didn't know how to. And sometimes we come across people in life, like yourself, that where somebody touches you, somebody says something to you, somebody ignites a little spark into you and gives you that little bit of belief that maybe I'm just like everybody else. I just don't know how to live like anybody else. And if somebody showed me how to live like somebody else, possibly I could do what somebody else does. And I went to see a friend of mine who was a probation officer. He became a probation officer to start to help people. And then he said, Howard, you probably got a drug problem. You need help. My intention wasn't to get clean, to work in a prison, to be a law-abiding citizen. I was trying to avoid a 5-year prison sentence. The reality was I was lying. I didn't think I could change. I didn't think there was any way in a world that I could change. So I'm just playing the system. I started going to these meetings and I went to court and a judge gave me an opportunity. I went away to rehab and people started talking about their feelings and their emotions and everything. And that was alien to me. I didn't talk about my feelings. I'm a guy who went to jail. I fight for a living. As time went on, a penny dropped. Take responsibility, grow up and have a look what you're doing. That was like being punched in the face because somebody told me something that hurt. And that was the truth. They ignited something inside me and I started applying myself. I stopped blaming people and I wanted a life better than I was having. And today, I haven't had drink or drugs for the last 18 years, and my life is beyond my wildest dreams. I work in a prison. I've had an opportunity to meet Alison and deliver a program which I truly believe in. It's a voluntary program. They want to make changes, come and have a go. You don't, go and sit behind your door, do your time, get out, and we'll see you the next time around. And I think that's the difference.
I am particularly indebted to Corinne for helping me, I think, being one of the people responsible as to why I'm able to work in the prison with Howard. So I have great pleasure, Corinne, in giving you the floor, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you. Over to you.
Alison and I have been working together for a number of years, along with Howard, who spoke this morning, on projects and interventions at Park Prison. And it's been a great pleasure to work with Alison and be connected with Rotary. So I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about the work we are doing with families. Well, I'm going to talk you through this model of family work. The picture you're looking at there in front of you is a scene from the end of one of the programmes that we do in Park Prison here in Wales. Just to give you an idea of the size of the prison, the capacity is about 1,600 men. That image that you're looking at was taken at a moment at the end of a presentation. He'd just finished this program. He'd spent about 120 hours in a group room going through all the different skills that he needed to learn to try and help him become a better father. And at the end of that graduation ceremony, all the children would run up, greet their dads and embrace, and there'd be certificates, and we'd be making a fuss of the graduate. It really does capture the emotion of what this work is about in the little boy's face, in the dad's face. And I'm glad to say that, 4 or 5 years on, that particular gentleman went a very different path in life. And despite what had happened to him up to that point, which had been in and out of prison pretty much his whole life and been a slave to addiction, that had changed. This is another picture that I've been using for a long, long time in presentations, again, because I think it's such a powerful image. Dad was with us, I think, for the 3rd or 4th time. And the mother wasn't able to take the boy for reasons I won't go into. And so it was left to the mentor to escort the little boy on down the road to his first day at school. And it's a pretty grim image. And I think, again, it's just the way that captures the overwhelming odds that they have to go through. I'm happy to say that little boy's future turned out very differently from that first day of school, when his future on that day was looking particularly dark, with his father in prison again and his mother not really interested in him. There's an enormous global evidence base that proves the impact that visits and family contact has on reducing reoffending and interrupting that pattern of the child, particularly young boys, following in father's footsteps. So when we started to look at how we could encourage more people to have visits, how could we change the system to make it more attractive and less frightening? So back in 2009, we were able to put forward a proposal that was approved, and we did something that at the time was a first, and that was we moved the visiting function away from the security department and into that of interventions. We also stripped back what visits looked like and tried to kind of rebuild it from the inside out to make it more rounded, softened, if you like, so that for people coming in, it was less intimidating. Well, again, pre-COVID, we had got up to 77% of our prison population at Park were having regular domestic visits. One of the big and noticeable changes that happened in our visits hall was that before we made these changes a decade ago, on average, we were having 1 incident a week in the visits hall where the officers would have to put hands on an individual, be that the prisoner or a family member, to stop some sort of altercation or a violent incident or an attempt to pass drugs or other contraband. So 1 of those incidents a week, the impact of that is something that will never leave a child. And I'm proud to say that we've had no more than a dozen incidents to put hands on someone in our visits hall in a decade. Then pre-COVID, just to give you an idea of numbers, we were averaging around around about 500 children coming into our visiting facilities a week, 72,000 visitors per annum. So we were doing visits, family visits on a massive scale, and it's something that we're very proud of. So disenfranchised grief, this is a slide that we use when we do, under normal circumstances, we do a lot of teacher awareness sessions in the prison. One of the best ways I ever heard this explained, which I'll share with you now, she said, if you imagine two children, on one hand, the girl's father tragically dies in a road traffic accident, and the other 8-year-old girl, her father receives a 12-year sentence and goes to prison. And then you have to think about the impact of that on the children, but then also start to consider how the communities and families and friends and everyone around them, including social media, how do they respond to those two children? You can be sure that in 99% of cases, the little girl whose father dies in a traffic accident will receive an outpouring of love and affection and support and sympathy from everyone around her, from the family, extended family, the neighbours, the friends, the schools, social media, complete strangers. Now consider exactly the same for the girl whose father's died. Will they respond and react in the same way? Sadly not. If anything, it will be the polar opposite. And that child will be left isolated, abandoned, confused. So the work that we're doing is trying to, particularly with schools, is trying to change that, because with bereavement comes explanation and an outpouring of love and support. With incarceration, invariably, none of those things are present. Again, this is something that we use with teachers to raise awareness, and we just quickly go around to show some of the kind of headline impacts that you can see happening with children when a parent goes to prison. So our family strategy that we developed argues that the most effective key to splintering the barriers to change is to purposefully create an empathic awakening. The most intrinsic, raw, and empathic reaction of the human condition is arguably triggered by the notion and experience of family, belonging, children, parenting, nurturing instinct. It is imprinted on our genetic and moral code, irrespective of circumstance, chance, or damage, the need for family, for things to be better. And this can be the most powerful catalyst for awakening and sustaining personal change. A notion that if the walls were invisible, the prison walls were invisible, and those inside could see out, and they could see through the walls of their homes, across the miles, into the room of their son or daughter at night who's crying because their dad's not there or their mum's not there, then we know that those individuals would feel different. They would feel something, and that allows us an opportunity to start working with them. The flip side of that coin is, if those outside could see in, I'm confident most people would feel different about most people in prison. And let's face it, over 99% of people in prison are going to come out. If the community feels and thinks differently about those people, they'll be more willing to give them an opportunity. People will feel differently about one another. And that's how the change process begins. There's just some pictures of some of the different interventions that we run in the visit centre under normal circumstances. These are some of the different interventions that we've run in partnership with local authorities. That one going back to 2012, which is an intervention for young parents who have young children who have literacy and numeracy challenges themselves. So the likelihood is their children will also, and so they do this intervention together. We set up a Scouts group for the prison, Glyndŵr Scouts Club, in 2014, and I'm proud to say that that's still going strong. This is Firefighter for a Day, so you're looking at images there from the prison of an intervention that is adapted from one South Wales Fire and Rescue deliver in local secondary schools. They come into the prison and they do fire safety awareness and awareness about vehicle crime and arson, with the fathers and their children together. These are just some of the outcomes. We had a 5-year study conducted by Professor Mike Maguire from the University of South Wales. Unemployment for prisoners dropped from 80% to 25%. Their family members, it decreased from 69% to 46%. Numbers of prisoners engaged in education, training or volunteering rose from 0 to 10%. Family members from 3 to 14%. This is a really significant one. Prisoners that were misusing alcohol and or drugs dropped from 89% to 20%, which is just incredible. Children considered at risk from social services halved. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corin. That's amazing.